Welcome to the sixth episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. I was going to call it episode 5.5, but that doesn't work well when you try to upload it to the different podcast services. On this episode, we speak with the engine crew from my department that recently made a grab at a house fire. Although this was never the intended purpose of this podcast, I believe there was an opportunity to use this platform as an educational tool and learn from the firemen that recently had an experience that very few of us will have a chance at. As I learn about the grabs that we make in our area, I'll try to continue to reach out to those who made them and let them tell their stories so that hopefully we can learn from them. I hope you enjoyed this episode and will return to your regularly scheduled program shortly. Thank you for listening.
Starting recording. So, all right, welcome back to another episode of the Dragon's Den podcast. We have a bit of a different episode here today. We have what we're calling the Debrief. We have with us today Aaron Spell, Greg Como, and Miles Bro. With the Debrief, this is going to be like an after-action report where we have guys within our department that made a grab, and we want to try to get the learning experiences from them. So with this podcast, as I've said many times before, we want to document the history of our fire department. That's what I would like to do, along with South Louisiana fire departments in general. But one of the other things was to have serious conversations with different guys around the country about leadership and culture and training and all these different things. But I saw an opportunity potentially where when we make grabs within our own department that we can learn from you guys' experience. So you guys recently had one, and I wanted to bring y'all on and talk. But for the record, we had a grab last year. I invited those guys on, and they decided they did not want to come on for different reasons, but they decided they didn't want to come in and participate in this process. I reached out to you guys, said, do y'all want to come on? You said, sure, we would. I am most concerned about, for me, the guys that really put hands on the body and actually removed them and their experience. There was another captain that was involved with y'all. This is all of Engine 7 right here. There was another captain that was involved. I invited him in to come and talk, and he also declined. But we got Aaron Spell here. He's the driver for Engine 7. Being that his crew was here, we brought him in too to give his experience from the outside. So this is going to be a much quicker episode than we normally do. It's just going to be on that one experience. We're not going to go into you guys' backgrounds or anything like that. We're not going to do the post follow-up questions that I usually ask. It's just your experience, your what you did, what you learned, kind of the good, bad, the ugly of actually making that rescue. I think personally find that very valuable. So I appreciate you guys coming on, and good morning. What we're going to do is we're going to start with Captain Como. We got Firefighter Bro over here to the left, and then, like I said, we got Engineer Spell over here to the right. So once again, thanks for coming, and Captain Como, we'll start with you and your experience.
Well, it was... I froze. No.
Well, let's start back. Similar to an incident critique, start back. What reports did you have coming in? Did you know that there was a victim? And
when we got the call, it came in as somebody possibly trapped, fire in the bedroom. Possibly the homeowner was trapped. So, that changes the game. You start focusing in your head on the way, as with going in blind, you really don't know what to expect. So we heard the first truck get there, said they were going to do an initial attack, and they had heavy smoke in the area. Once we arrived, Aaron said he knew where the hydrants were. He was just going to give 500 gallons, and he was going to hand stretch to a hydrant.
That's once y'all showed up? That's once you actually
got
there?
Once we got on the street, as a captain, you're supposed to give orders, and I've been blessed, especially since I've been at 7. My guys are all experienced. I have a great crew. I don't have to say much. My biggest downfall at that point when I arrived, I should have told Miles to pull a line. I didn't. We were focused on, someone's trapped. got out. Once we got in the yard, we saw Engine 10, or the crew from Station 10, on the corner, and we just went meet them at the front door. Miles had his irons, and they started to pop the door. Him and the fireman on Engine 10. Once the door was popped, we went in, and there was zero visibility. We started trying to do a search, and Miles yelled back at me and said he couldn't. He said, "Cap, can't see anything. I'm in a corner." So at that point, we decided to hydraulic ventilate. We didn't have a line inside, so we backed out, and all I could think was windows, So I left them and went around the backside. And at that point, I saw Aaron was already in the back, had picked up a line and started hitting the fire on the roof. I started banging on windows, just if I could hear anybody, just yelling.
Try to get a call out.
Trying to get some kind of call out. I broke first window. I broke out in the backside, yelled inside, nothing. Banged on another window and the window broke, but I kept hitting something, didn't know what I was hitting. And then went to the second side, and the window was already busted out. That was her bedroom. At that point, I saw a DC, and I told him, I'm just going to go through a window, thinking she might have been in the bedroom. Sure. Jumped through the window, did a search in that room. Heavy fire damage already in that room. And that's the point I saw on the ceiling, on the roof. You could tell it was in the attic. It was all above us. Went through a hall. Well, I checked another bathroom that was in that room. Nothing. Went to another bedroom and did a search in another spare room. Nothing. And then I ran into Miles and the other captain in the hallway. By that point, they had made it down the hall. We ran into each other in the hall, and Miles pushed the door open and yelled. That's when he yelled and said, "I found her."
So that was one of the things we had talked about previously, because we've kind of already gone over a lot of this. There was a drastic difference at some point where when y'all went in initially, it was completely zero, like you couldn't see anything. And
correct.
And Miles can talk about that too. But then by the time you had swung around to start checking windows, that it was clear. When you found her bedroom window, you looked inside of her bedroom where you had fire previously blowing
correct.
out. And it's like, oh, we can kind of see everything. And at that point you made a decision, hey, I'm going to go hop in, see if I can search it, and then see if you can extend the search
correct.
down the hallway, which you were able to. The conditions allowed you to, through very likely the hydraulic ventilation that had happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hallway was, when I got in the hall, the first bedroom was completely clear. The second bedroom I checked was not, but I was able to do a search, and it wasn't a very big bedroom. And she had a lot of stuff. You could tell there was,
right.
But there wasn't much visibility. And in the hall, I don't remember there being that much visibility in the hall either, but enough for us to do,
get a decent search
correct.
accomplished, right? So
correct.
you weren't 100% hands. You could see something down low.
Correct.
And we'll get Miles's version of it, but so you meet up with Miles and the other captain on 27. They've
correct.
already found her. So you approach him, and
no, they hadn't found her yet. When we ran into each other there, Miles, I actually literally ran into him. Mm-hmm. We bumped into each other, and then I told him and the other captain, I already searched these two rooms. There's nothing. Then Miles, I don't know how, at that point he just said I saw him going into that room, didn't know which room it was, and he yelled, he found her. Mm-hmm. I see her, or something.
Okay, so you go in, you run into both of them, right? Mm-hmm. And then y'all start a drag. Y'all start some form of a drag. Were you helped participate in that?
Yes. Well, Miles grabbed her feet, mm-hmm. pulled her into the hallway. And he went one way, and I knew the exit was the opposite way. So I said, yeah, we need to go this way. And the other captain he didn't say a word. He just scooped her under her arms and started dragging.
Okay.
I really don't even know how I grabbed. I mean,
A bit of a blur.
It was a blur. From that point, I just remember him dragging, and I was trying to get on the side, and he just dragged into an opening, and I scooped her up by the legs. He kept dropping his. I don't know if he had her under her arms completely, or
I think he had her under her arms, but he was mostly holding on to her shirt.
And her shirt ended up coming off. So he scooped her up again, and that's when I just grabbed her legs, and we ran out the side door.
Right. Victim roughly. What was the pound, the weight?
It's very light.
Yeah,
very light. So it wasn't a super
Maybe
difficult.
130.
Yeah, I was gonna
max.
say 130, 125.
Yeah. So we're not talking about a big obese victim.
No,
It was
no,
just
no, no.
Pretty standard.
Correct.
Standard. Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned clothes coming off. You know, so many times we can grab clothes reasonably easy, but if we don't have that, trying to grab those actual body parts, it becomes a reality if they're slick or if, like I said, clothes or burned too badly, that kind of stuff. So you'll get her out through the front door, back the way you came.
No.
Or no, different
There was
exit.
there was a door. It was under the carport, and at that point they had enough visibility. We could see someone had opened that door. We could see daylight or the lights flashing, so we just went straight out that door.
Okay.
It ended up being a kitchen.
Okay.
Got her out. Once we got out into the yard, we brought her out to the front yard. We had the driver from 10 and another driver.
Yeah, Trent.
That's right. We brought her out into the front yard, laid her down, and they took over. I mean, didn't skip a beat. They literally, I'm telling you, everything worked from the time the guys popped the door, us getting in there. Once we got it, they just took over, started
CPR, or whatever
yes.
needed to happen on that point.
Started.
Right?
Yeah, she actually had a pulse. As soon as we laid her down, she had a pulse the entire time in the front yard. And it wasn't until after they got into the unit, got her all packaged up, probably moving her around kind of thing, she coded, started pumping her again, and got a pulse back on the way to the hospital.
So from your experience, well, before we hop into Miles, because Miles has a different, he's got a slightly different experience. The good, the bad, the ugly. Off of what do you think? What'd you do well, and what would you, what did you expect? What would you have done differently, if anything?
Differently, I would have given more orders. Back up. I'd have done a better visual once we arrived, given better orders, maybe talked more on the radio. Thinking back, I don't think I talked one time on the radio to give any command, any kind of indication of what was going on. Partly because I was focused on grabbing her. I didn't have the lapel mic. I had just a radio in my pouch.
Do you normally? Let me stop you there. Do you normally carry the satchel, so to speak?
I normally do. It depends on, it really. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. I don't have a preference. I do now. Honestly, because it really is easier. We never had them before. So I've been captain, 10 years.
Yeah.
We never really had them before. Aaron kind of got me attached to him per se, but there's other captains that take them off. So each crew's different.
Yeah. You bouncing back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. And Gerard Saunier said that in one of his first episodes, there was a DC that was trying to pull him out due to, I forget what it was. I'm going to forget. Maybe it was a collapse or something was going on. And he literally says, like, I didn't answer him back. I could hear him talking, but I had it in the pocket because we didn't, back in the the 80s and 90s, they weren't messing with the straps, weren't a thing for us at all. And that was one of the things that he mentioned, that he didn't answer back because he would have to pull it out of the radio pocket and mess with it. And that's something I've been trying to push on the department for quite a while, is the accessibility of having it, underneath the coat, down below the bottom of that coat, so you can get
Correct.
good reception, and then having that lapel just hanging out the top, where one quick hand grab, and then you can give the, not only can you say what you want to say on the radio, but also you can hear it a lot better. It's amplified.
That's my point. The hearing already, the 24 years, my hearing is shot. I could hear it a lot better. I don't even remember anything transmitting over the radio the whole time.
So, so giving orders to the crew, and
doing a better visual initially. I was just focused on one thing. This woman, we
happens.
had somebody possibly inside. It was tunnel vision.
Yeah.
I visually saw the other crew, and I went meet them. Like, let's go, let's get her. And again, I've been blessed for many years to have a great crew. Before Miles came, I had, some other good guys. I've been having Aaron for quite a while now. It's just,
sure.
So that would be the first, do a better visual and give some specific orders that I feel. And
then wearing the radio strap.
Yeah,
Being consistent, and because it's hit or miss. But I'm glad you said, like, oh, now I will, because when you have that in that heat of the moment where it's like you have that impactful deal, it's like, okay, it was kind of wishy-washy before, but now that we've had this, man, that thing was really important. I really needed to hear what was going on the fire. I really needed to be able to give that call to it with it being in the radio pocket, as you know, it just makes it more difficult. It just makes it harder.
Luckily the guys where we brought her were ready. They saw us coming. But if I could have radioed it, they could have met us at the door under the carport and help. Would it have helped? The outcome? Who knows? But it could have.
It could have. All right, we'll hop over to Miles. Give your perspective. We know already that Captain Como did not give you an order, so now you're free thinking a little bit. You're like, all right, we're kind of predicting what he wanted or whatever. So go down your path.
Well, I think it was probably around 9 o'clock when we got the call. We get there. It's very heavy smoke. Like you said, over the radio, we get possibly trapped victim. So that's the only thing that's running through my mind. Not thinking of putting out fire, just rescue mode.
Sure.
Jump down, grab the irons, head off, run to the front door. There was 2 doors we had to pop. One was a pretty solid glass door, and the other one was a normal wood door. Me and the fireman off of 10 did it. We did pretty well on it. We were able to get in pretty fast. Once we got in, it was just it was like bulls in a china shop. We all ran in.
Yeah, bottles bouncing
off of each other. And the bad part about it was we ran straight into a living room that was all walled off with a small door leading into the kitchen. So when we all ran in, it was no grab a wall, try to find the door. It was all just we all piled up inside of there, and it felt like forever while we were in there, but it was probably only 45 seconds while we were in there.
Right.
But we ended up opening a door. They started hydraulically ventilating.
Well, let's back up real quick, because me and you have talked about this already. You had kind of said you got zero visibility.
Yes, no visibility.
And then you tried to use the thermal.
Yes,
right?
The thermal. I mean, it was fogged up. Mask was fogged. Kept trying to wipe everything. Couldn't see it. Even if I would try to look at the thermal, just a big white cloud.
White cloud. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a common thing that me and you've already talked about. Is that whiteout, which the old ones actually did white out, but it has the same effect of whiting out, but it's just condensation that's built up on the lens, probably because you were standing up, right?
Exactly.
So you wiped it. You had told me you wiped it, and then it didn't change.
It didn't change
stayed,
at all. So then,
did you stay up in? But it was still warm, and you stayed up in the atmosphere.
Yeah. So I mean, by then it was useless tool. So I just let it hang.
Right.
Then, while they started hydraulically ventilating, I dropped to the ground.
Right. Right.
And whenever I dropped to the ground, I probably had maybe 3 foot of visibility then. So then now I was able to figure out, okay, there's a doorway here. And another captain that was with us followed me. We walked in, out the living room, into the kitchen. Got hung up in the kitchen a little bit because there was a little bit heavier smoke in the kitchen rather than being in the living room since they started hydraulically ventilating.
Sure.
I ended up finding that garage door, opening the garage door to get more airflow. That's whenever we left, and then we ended up in the hallway. Whenever we ended up in the hallway, that's where Greg said he met us, but I had tunnel vision so bad that I don't even remember meeting up with him. Cool. I just remember grabbing doors, opening, looking inside. The first door I grabbed was an AC unit, like
right.
Those
so small
nothing,
ones.
yeah.
You can't even get into.
So
those.
then I closed the door. Next door I walk up to was the bathroom. I really debated on going inside the bathroom, not knowing if, like wanting to go check the rooms first, like the actual livable rooms.
Sure.
Opened up the bathroom door, walked inside. Still the visibility was it wasn't as heavy as the living room and the kitchen because the door was closed, but it was still pretty thick inside of there. First thing I did was go, and it was just a straight bathroom. First thing I did was walk in. There's a shower tub, so I felt inside the shower tub. Nothing was in the shower tub, and by the time I got out the shower tub, she was laying in between my legs, and that's whenever I verbalized to everybody, saying that I found her. Started pulling her out by her legs because it was only probably 3-4 foot wide.
Yeah, it's like one of those old houses built in the 50s, 60s. So it's a real skinny bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then whenever we pulled her out, I got disoriented and thought that the exit was the opposite way. So whenever I pulled her out, I put her legs towards the fire. Head was going out the correct way, which honestly I felt like it worked out better because then another captain was able to come scoop her up by her arms and then.
Yeah, it just so happened to work out. It was the wrong way, but it just so happened to work out.
Sure, pretty well. Yeah,
sure. So go ahead.
Add this. You just said about an older home. Mm-hmm. That was another part of this whole scenario was the windows. All the windows in the older homes are usually high,
elevated. Yeah,
that was another. Now, could she have gotten out on her own anyway? Probably not. But
based on what we know of her current condition, probably not.
Right. Yeah. But that was another challenge for everyone too. It was difficult even busting the window out, trying to get,
Well, Station 8 ran into the same problem. Station 8 had those elevated and the windows were tight. They weren't even, they weren't high and big. They were high and small.
Exactly.
And they still got her up and out. But it was way more of a challenge, and they had a bunch of talking points. They had a bunch of lessons learned off of that one. Definitely. But y'all ran into a similar problem. But based on condition, it would have been a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So, you had some.
Yeah. The window itself in the bathroom, was it one of those small like 2 by 1?
It was a tiny.
Yeah.
Very
2
tiny.
foot by 1 foot, really small window. So if she was able to bust the window, it was probably 6 foot high off the ground to where it was one of those little small windows, just enough to get sunlight into the.
That would have been a tough one. That would have been
really
almost
tough.
impossible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we know now you get the legs pull the wrong way. You start going head first because the other captain grabs and starts pulling. So from there we know, right, gets out to the deal. They get all taken care of. Lessons learned on your part based on how did you know what made you decide to force the door? What was it was automatic. It was an automatic thing for you.
Yeah, and I mean you kind of get an idea whenever you pull up to the house and you see nobody outside and you see a vehicle there by itself, and it's just context clues that you use.
Because he didn't give you, once again, I'm saying that for other firemen, if they don't, because I do that frequently. Greg. I hop off, and the situation looks kind of obvious, and I've got two good guys behind me, and we talk about things like this constantly, that
Correct.
they just roll. They pull in the correct line. They're going to start their attack at the correct spot. And if they're not, I redirect. But it's for a newer fireman, not new-ish, you're not that new, Miles, but to not get anything from the captain to go, okay, here's what is most likely the thing that is most needed.
I mean,
to go to the door, time to pop it, you know?
I've had multiple other fires where I did not grab the irons and had to run back and grab them. Where you kind of learn, you know.
Is that something that the cap told you,
No.
like, hey, I want you to grab irons consistently on every call? Or that was something that you just learned, like, hey, I'm not going to be running back and forth to get these things, right?
Yeah. I mean,
No, actually, our rule is thermal.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things we talked about the
Thermal
last
is-
couple of years. Is
yes,
make sure you grab a thermal when you
is-
get down.
Man, it's a mandatory. But
Which is good. I'm glad that is a mandatory thing.
So I'm gonna pick on him a little bit.
Sure.
One thing he forgot, he didn't say, was when he was in that room and he was trying to look with the thermal, he kept seeing a reflection back. When he was in that living area, it was a mirror. He was in front of a mirror, and it just kept
man.
reflecting back on him.
Because I also had my flashlight on, and it threw me for a big loop. Because
You're looking at people. You're looking.
yeah.
You look, and
It's
it's like,
it's a huge mirror, and I'm in a corner stuck between two couches. There's this huge mirror on the ground, and it's reflecting, and it's
reflecting his flashlight.
and it's
super
it's
difficult.
different.
I
It's
carry the
different,
thermal.
very different.
I carry the thermal, and there's every time I go in, I'm a big proponent of it, but every time I go in, there's that FOV change, like the field of view, everything tightens down. Like I've looked in it and gone, what in the hell? Like, what in the hell? When it's good, it's good. If it gives you some context clues to, this is a living room. There's a couch here. Okay,
Right,
put it down and then do a normal living room search. That's the idea behind it. There's sometimes I've looked and gone, I have absolutely no clue what I'm looking at, and then you got to revert back to your standard, but you'd rather have it than not have it. Like but that's neither here nor there. But
Yep.
so you decided to force the door. Lessons learned. What did you expect? What was difficult? What would you have possibly changed?
What I expected, I don't know that. I really don't know what I expected. Just routine house fire kind of. Besides being a trap victim, because I mean that's the first time I ever had that happen.
Sure.
What I expected was to be able to go in, feel around, go to the room. If she was there, grab her, pull her out. Really didn't happen that way. But what I did wrong was, once again, not grab a hose line, but getting in the house, just running around and just arms out and clinking bottles, and instead of dropping to the ground, getting good visibility. And I felt like those 30 seconds could have made a difference. And
Getting lower sooner.
Most
That's kind of
definitely.
like that's what you're saying. Get lower. Try to orient yourself to a couch or a recliner or whatever, and then kind of start
Fill a
low.
wall and-
Start low and stay low
Yep.
instead of kind of bouncing off of each other. It's so we think about when we talk about search, we're going to get down nice and low, start in a tripod position, but man, so often we just don't want to get low, and so we end up bouncing off of each other while walking around, going, we can't see anything. Yeah, well, no shit, we can't see anything. We're bouncing off of each other. It's difficult, but I'm glad that you mentioned at some point you decided, hey, let me drop below everybody, like while the chaos is going on, and then lo and behold, what happened? You were like, oh, I can kind of make out feet. I can kind of see, I can kind of see that. Oh, we're in a living room, and it got better for you, and you were able to orient towards an exit. So, all right, we're gonna kick it over to Spell. Now, Spell did not put his hands on a body. However, when I was going over this with Captain Como, Spell had made a couple of decisions that I personally liked. I don't know if they were perfect decisions, but I know I liked them. And he's here to kind of give an outside perspective. So go ahead with your same thing, thought process. Once again, we know, Cap wasn't telling you, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. So it's from a driver's perspective coming in on a rescue, from what you saw, what the decisions you made, and kind of why you made them.
So out of the gate, as we're getting there, obviously the captain on 10 verbalized that I guess the neighbor had said that she was in there. And so as you kind of change your process driving there, I mean, obviously I think I got there in a decent amount of time, but I think the biggest part behind that is all of a sudden you start thinking about, okay, so normally I would want a water supply, or normally I would want these things. Now it's detrimental if we don't do it, right? Because now there's a life involved. And so I think whenever we pulled in, the stress for me was that I knew that there was a hydrant there, but the street was full of smoke. So it's like I have a feeling where it's at. I think I know where it's at. And then as soon as you get there, you're like, man, if I can't find this hydrant, like we're going to be in trouble, because the amount of smoke, it looked like the whole house was involved. So it's like I'm kind of debating on whether or not she even made it because of the amount of smoke. So as we get there, 10 had already kind of pulled past the house. And so they had a line out. Once we're there, once we passed the smoke layer, because it was actually blowing towards us, once we got to the house, smoke was actually behind us.
Yes.
And then you could kind of tell that it really just looked like a back bedroom. So I was able to pull my 10's pony load, give him my 500 gallons. What I can say about that is that in our area, we've been trying to do that a ton. Me and the driver on 10 work really well together. Javon he makes it happen. If I'm first or he's first, it doesn't matter. We barely even talk to each other. Water supply is going. The thing that I think probably most people didn't see is actually my deputy chief, Justin, from a different fire department. He actually got the call. We're testing a different software, and so we're getting it a lot sooner. And so he saw it come in. He knew it was a house fire, knew somebody was trapped. So he starts heading our way. So as soon as I get off the truck, I see him as I'm making my 500 gallons to 10. And he's like, hey, man, like, you want to stretch that hydrant? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So as he starts pulling that off, I'm like, okay, well, if he's got that, 10's taken care of. I grabbed the extra line, 1 3/4 inch, and wrapped it around the back. Whenever I got back there, it was blowing out of both the Bravo Charlie's corner. And so I was able to pick up 10's line, left the backup line on that backside, was able to knock down some fire. I did not have a radio, which I think normally I do. Normally I have something that I can get to, but I'm also close to the truck. Mm-hmm. So that was one of those situations where I know now that if I'm going to detach myself from my truck, I got to bring some kind of communication with me. Small house, you can kind of hear people talking, but you can't really. If he wanted to give me some kind of order, that's my fault on that. Like I wouldn't have been able to do it. However, the plus side to that is, as soon as Javon saw me take off with that 1 3/4 inch, he pumped both trucks. Mm-hmm. Like again, one of those situations where we don't have to talk about it. He saw me take off with that 1 3/4 inch. He just took care of both of them, which he did a bang up job.
And I'm assuming, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming you decided to pull that line because you didn't see water flow, and you said, hey, we got to support this search. We got to get water into the structure to support the search, because that's not normally, we know this, that's not too normal for an engineer in our department to pull a line to start suppression. But in this scenario, like that's an we go into sometimes in robot mode as engineers or whatever we're doing, where we're kind of doing the same thing. But in this case, you saw something different. Like, hey, they're inside searching. Yep. We got a strong potential for a victim. We have to get water onto this fire. I'm assuming that was the decision.
I can tell you exactly where it came from. It was my first day back from vacation, and this vacation, I ended up going to a 50-hour training class over there in Florida, and it was a more of an officer level class, but he took people before water, death on the nozzle, all of these different classes, and kind of put them together. And so my first day back, all of those things are still running through my head. Number one, we have to get victims out. We don't need to worry about a water supply. Thankfully, Justin was there and was able to get my water supply, but we got to get her out. We play around at the hydrant. We prioritize that. We're giving her less time. So that ended up working out. I had the thought of death on the nozzle, which is firemen going in, don't have a nozzle, get disoriented. need water to better keep themselves alive, and they don't have it. So would I have done the same thing before vacation? I don't know. I hope so. But going to that class helped me to think about those things, and it was fresh in my mind. And so, you know, getting extra lines on the ground, if something happens, a backup line, you know, these are my crew, and I don't want anything bad happening to them. So if I can put extra lines on the ground at every window, at every door, at every exit, anywhere that I can get to them, and they can just reach out and grab them, that's my plan. So.
Yeah. Now you didn't mention who it was, but I didn't go to that class, not Office of Development, but that was a CFT. That was
it was
County
Battalion Chief Boot Camp in Pensacola, and it was Kurt Isaacson.
Yeah, that's I've got my own story of CFT that I'll save, but we didn't talk about that before. I didn't know that was on your mind when it came to why do we pull it. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, it was funny. The week after when we got back, they had started a Slack account to talk amongst the guys and stuff like that. And I really didn't use it in the class. They would post videos and stories and stuff like that. And then as soon as either KTC or KLF or whatever it was posted it, I was able to grab it, dump it into the Slack account, and I was like, "Hey, first day back from vacation,
First day,
babe."
we caught one, boys. We caught one.
Yeah, and it was cool. It was cool to go back and forth with all of them because that was the whole class.
Yeah,
you know,
that was
it's
the whole
exactly
point.
what it is. Like
Those
we
types
need
of
to pull more people out of fires.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Kurt is huge on that, and he's very passionate when he gives those speeches. All right, I think that's pretty much it. But I'll open up the floor for final thoughts. We're about 35, 36 minutes in. Anything else that y'all want to wrap it up for? You know, you've got lessons learned. We've got what happened. I didn't know if there was something that you want to, you know, a fireman that might be watching this to say, hey, if you run into this scenario, you know, here's what I did. Here's what I do better. You want to kind of leave them on that. You've already given y'all's own personal final thoughts, but you're good.
yeah, I think vent is one of the big priorities on that I think for this fire really made that difference.
Yeah, they called for a vent. I know that because we were listening to it on the radio. They called for a vent, but it was already venting through the roof. But the real game changer was the hydraulic ventilation. That's what, from what y'all are telling me.
Most definitely.
That
made a difference.
Yeah, and that we've said that 1,000 times, right? Hydraulic ventilation works. We should use it, and then we use it, and it goes, wow, it works way better than we.
Yeah,
everybody comes out and goes, man, it works really, really well. We already know that, but it seems to work every time. Hydraulic ventilation works so well.
We've had 3 fires in the last month, and all 3 fires we hydraulic ventilated, and it's fast.
Yeah,
Made a difference.
Yeah, why are you bragging, man? I'm up on the north side, and I got 2 fires in the last 10 and a half months, and you talk about 3 in a month.
Well, we were joking about that with Engine 10. Like,
you
know, the Engine 10s out there on the outlier. We always joke about if they do get a fire, it's all in a big, huge commercial area and stuff like that. They don't normally get it because of all the inspections. They keep all that stuff up. But, man, 10 is getting it.
Yeah.
I got kicked out of the north side for next year, but I'm joking that, you know, I joke that, well, I got to go chase fire, so I got to go out of the south side to be able to do any actual work. So, all right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Wrapping it up?
So.
All right. So once again, a little quick short episode of the debrief for the Dragon's Den podcast. As we get more rescues, I'm going to keep inviting guys on to come talk about their experience. I think that there's some value in you guys speaking. You know, I can talk about search all day long, but the guys that put hands on victims and remove them, I think that's very valuable. And so I'm going to try to use this platform to try to help as many as we can. So that was the point. So thank y'all for coming on. We appreciate y'all's time, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode. So appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.